and welcome to Box, the football talk show brought to you by Sportology TV. I'm Ali Drew. On the last episode, we had Danny Webber joining us, talking to us about the possible signings for Man United, the great season that Sheffield United had, and looking ahead to Leeds joining the Premier League again. But on today's show, we have some great guests. First up, we have another former Sheffield United player who also played for Swansea and is a Welsh international who is now playing for Barry Town. It is David Cotterill. David, how are you doing and how is life treating you at Barry Town?
Yeah, I'm really well, thank you. Barry's been good. I've got that competitive side of things back into me since, I retired for 2 years. So since coming back, it's good. My teammates are great. The management staff are all really good as well. So it's going good.
Before we talk football, I just want to talk to you. You're a mental health consultant. So I just want to talk to you a bit about that. Sort of what has got you sort of into talking about mental health awareness? Obviously, it's such an important issue. But I just want to sort of get a lot of your story, really.
So it's been well documented that I was suffering with mental health during my playing career, but I always kept that under wraps really and just kept it to myself. And I was also fighting addiction as well. So since when I retired, I wanted just to try and give a platform for people to help who are struggling on a regular basis, not just people who can, possibly pay for the counselling or got access that way, but to try and give back in the local communities really where I'm originally from. So that's hence why I started up my own foundation. And also I've got these online courses as well, which I've set up with a psychotherapist, self-help courses, which, instead of going to see a counsellor, etc., you can, a self-help course, which is online, so it's easy accessible.
Do you think that since you returned to playing football, that's also helped you as well with your mental health?
I think so. Yeah, I think I'm a bit more aware of obviously people's feelings that way, but when it comes to playing football, you still got to have that competitive edge, and you can't be too worried about letting people know what's going to happen on the pitch, because ultimately you want to win. So you can't still pussyfoot around people really. You need to just get the win, and you need to try and put things across the right way if you can after the games. But I think mentally I do feel a lot better going into it this way than before.
Do you think that mental health is a real issue for footballers, like ex-footballers, when they stop playing? I've seen it, I've heard it a few times. When they stop playing, obviously their career just ends and everything that they've done for their whole lives stops. So do you think that it's a sort of issue that is bigger than what people know about?
Yeah, I don't think there's not a lot of support, I would say, in the sense for footballers for afterlife. I think they have this short career, and I think people generally think that they're all multimillionaires. They don't need to work ever again, blah blah. But even if you see the successful footballers who don't have to work again, they still continue to do so, because otherwise you're just gonna be mentally bored. You're just going to get bored. There's many years still after football that you need to still concentrate on to do other things, and maybe it's helping others or going to doing coaching or whatever it may be. I think you always have to keep actively busy. So I think there does need a lot more support with regards to organisations in helping footballers. I wouldn't even say just before they retire, because I think right throughout their careers, where the younger lads are getting released, they need help to go back into normal life because they've been rejected, and they need to find a way there. And then when you come to the end of your career, you need to think again for another job. So I think all over the board, there needs to be a lot more support.
Yeah, completely. Well, talking about football, so obviously some of your current teams, you used to play for Sheffield United. Just want to talk about their season that they had. Obviously, fantastic season that they had. First season back in the Premier League, they were top half, just a phenomenal season. Just reflect back on that for me.
Yeah, I think to be fair, they probably went into the season and they were one of the favourites to go down. But with the style of play that they have, and they obviously got a brilliant manager as well, and they have a great chemistry in terms of like the whole squad that they have. I think they've surprised a few, because not many teams would have come up against a formation, a style of play that they played. So I think they took a lot of people by surprise. And I think the thing is, when you do get promoted, you still have that confidence of winning more often, not week in, week out. And that's a good thing. So then when you go up, They just kept that kind of winning mentality, and they continued their journey, and they've done it ever so well. I think probably from their point of view, the second season and the third season are always the toughest. I think the first season, obviously everyone's buzzing to get promoted, but fingers crossed that they can continue to do what they were doing last year.
And is there any transfer news? I've not heard anything about sort of transfers that they're potentially making. Do you think that they need to make some good ones in order to continue that sort of good run of form into this next season?
Well, I think they've obviously brought in a couple of signings that the goalkeeper, and then obviously Ampadu signed as well. So I think they're just trying to bring in the right players that'll fit their group. I don't think they're the type of club, and I don't think Wilder's the type of manager just to bring in people just for the sake of it and just kind of bring someone in and that's going to kind of mess the dressing room up. So I think he's being very particular in who he brings in, whether they add to the group and whether they improve on what they could last year. And if they can't, there's no point bringing them in if they don't feel that they're better players than what they already have.
So do you see them this season sort of continuing on and maybe doing better?
I think it'd be very difficult for them to do better than they did last year. I think they were, especially with, the big boys, Arsenal and another Everton as well. Teams like that have really gone out and spent the cash, and they've strengthened, and so I think if they get into mid-table finish, I think they'll be happy with that.
Well, another former club of yours is Swansea. They missed obviously getting the promotion. I think people thought they would it maybe between them and Cardiff in the playoffs. It didn't happen. Do you think that this season now is the season that potentially they get promoted again?
I think I think they'll take playoffs before the season start, and I think last season I was really impressed with them at the start of the campaign, and I thought they had a real great chance of going up automatically at one point, but they just they did drift away, and they started going on a losing run, which obviously doesn't help anyone when you have aspirations of getting promotion. But I think they'll take a playoff finish this season. There's a lot of obviously big clubs that have come down from the Premier League. They're going to be looking to bounce straight back up. So hopefully they can go a little bit better and finish in the playoffs. I think that'll be a successful season for them.
And who do you see being sort of in the top four of the Premier League this season, and also who do you see getting relegated back down?
I think it's gonna be tough. I think Man City are gonna win the league. I just can't really see them losing the title like they did last year. I think top four. I'd love to see Man United in there because I'm a Man United fan, but I just think they need to add, 3 or 4 players still to improve them as a squad. Because I just think if one of the 2 key players get injured, they don't really have anyone to step in who's going to obviously keep up the standards that they can. Chelsea have obviously spent big. They'll be looking to get into the top 4. So I'll probably say Man City to win the league, Liverpool, Chelsea and Man United to finish top 4.
So do you think that it won't be Chelsea, it will be sort of everyone else playing better? So Chelsea, Man City, they'll all be playing better rather than Liverpool not playing as well? Do you think that they can continue their good form? Obviously, they had an incredible season. They played phenomenally. They'd won it an absolute mile before it even ended. But do you think it's not going to be like a sort of different performance? It's just going to be everyone else stepping up with the new signings they've got?
I think for Liverpool to maintain the levels that they did last year would be incredible, really. So I think a bit of both. I think they won't be able to keep up the levels that they did last year. If they do, then they deserve to win the league, of course. But I think that Man City will definitely have to step up because I think they were off it last year, and Pep won't be too happy with that. And I think Chelsea have spent very big as well. So and Lampard has won everything as a player, so he won't be accepting just a top 4 finish. So they'll be looking to push. And I think he's already openly come out and said that he wants to try and win the league because spending that amount of money, it's not just about a top 4 finish anymore. They need to be pushing for a lot of other things, and I'm hoping as a Man United fan that they kick on a bit as well.
And so, other ends of the table, who do you think are gonna struggle and possibly go down?
I think Leeds United are going to be fine. I think out of the teams that have got promoted, I think they'll stay up and do well. Especially after seeing them against Liverpool as well, they show that they can to score goals, 3 goals away from home, and play the way they do. I think they got a good chance of doing good things. I think West Brom will be looking definitely over their shoulders. I think they've got a possibility of going down. And who was the other team? Sorry, who got promoted?
So the other team was.
I've thrown you under
I
the
know
bus here, haven't
it
I?
was, and I can't remember now. Who was
So
in? Who was
Fulham,
in the
Fulham,
playoff?
sorry, yeah,
Fulham. Yeah, it was
Fulham,
Fulham.
yeah,
Yeah.
Fulham. I think Fulham. It's going to be difficult so I think difficult for Fulham and West Brom. I think those two will definitely be there or thereabouts to be going down. Um, and again, I think unless West Ham sign a few players, they've been down there over the last few seasons as well. But hopefully, a team like that don't go down. But I think definitely two out of the promotion of the three will be definitely. I would say they're going to go down.
So yeah, because it is always the hardest when the first season back in the Premier League, you are sort of expected to just sometimes go straight back down. But as you say, Leeds had a great first game this weekend against Liverpool. They didn't obviously get any points, so they've not really got anything from it. But I think they can, as you say, be pleased with their performance and the fact that they got so many goals against Liverpool. It's got to be the sort of start that they would have wanted, even though they haven't actually got anything from it.
Yeah, I think with the philosophy obviously Bielsa's got as well. He's got a great style of play, and they've all bought into that. You can see how close they are as well as a group. And I've always liked especially over the last couple of seasons, they play a great, attractive football, and they've shown that they can do it against a top team in Liverpool. I think, and not many teams go to Anfield and score 3 goals, but on the opposite side of things is that you can't be leaking in 4 goals. If you score 3 goals, you'd like to think that you're going to win that match. So I think from that point of view, if they can tighten things up at the back, and if they continue to do what they're doing by scoring 3 goals, and I think, to be quite honest, it wouldn't surprise me if they finish around about mid-table this season.
Do you think that certain teams are going to struggle more? Obviously, they had part of the season with no crowds last season, but it doesn't. I mean, I don't know when it's going to return with crowds. But do you think certain teams will sort of struggle more with that? The likes of Leeds, they've got such a strong fan base. Do you think that certain teams will actually struggle the fact that there's no crowd there more than others?
Yeah, I think, as you say, Leeds have always had a huge following. It's a great supported club, and I think they play a big part, especially when you go to Ellen Road. It's a full house. They will help you out. But I think with teams like, I think the way they pass the ball with Sheffield United, Leeds United, Man City, Liverpool, the way they go about their business, I don't think that'll change too much, because you get the vibe that they do that on a day-to-day basis. But also from the other point of view is that in football, there's a lot of players who can they train really well, which could take off the added pressure. So some of them might be going into games a little bit more freely now, whereas like when there's a crowd there, people get a little bit more anxious. But I think it can go both ways. Of course, it's not the same really. Even when you watch it on TV and there's no crowd there, it's just not the same football without the fans. So as soon as that can get back there, the better. But I think some players might be playing freely. The other ones need to have the energy, need to have a full house for them to perform, because there's a lot of players who train really well, but then when it comes to a game, they don't really perform as well. So it can work both ways.
What do you think when you're watching the football? Do you like it with crowd noise? Do you like no crowd noise? What do you prefer?
I want the fans I want to hear the fans really screaming, even with all this, the special effects that they're showing in the stadium. It's still not the same when they got the fans shouting in the background. It's just, as I say, it's not the same without the fans being at the games.
Do you prefer? Because I saw on 2 different channels they had one with like fake crowd noise and one without. It was just completely silent. And even though I don't think I like the crowd noise, but it's definitely better than when it was silent. Because I think I watched one game and someone scored, and I was like, oh, have they scored? Because there was no reaction at all. So I was like, has the goal been allowed, or is it what's happened? And it wasn't. It was just because there's no reaction whatsoever.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's better to have a little bit of noise rather than not.
Yeah.
And it's probably better for the viewers as well, because you probably hear a lot more swearing if there's no noises.
Yeah, that's true. Well, we ask all players this question. So before we finish, I just want to know, out of everyone you've played with across all the teams, who is the greatest player that you've ever played alongside?
Bale, I would say. Gareth Bale is the best player I've played with. I've obviously played with Ryan Giggs as well. He is my hero, but I think from the time I've been in the Welsh squad and growing up with Bale, I think he's he's won 4 Champions Leagues, and I don't feel that he gets the benefit, the applause that he deserves, really.
Do you think that he'll make a return to the Premier League?
I hope so, but I think he's earned the right to pick and choose wherever he wants to go. To be quite honest, I don't think, again, in many years to come, I think Real Madrid will appreciate him a lot more than what they're saying about him now. But of course, I'd love to be him to come to the Premier League. Hopefully, Man United. But as I say, he's well in the right to pick and choose where he decides to go and maybe finish his career next.
And who do you think, on a pitch, who was the greatest player you've ever been on a pitch with? On sort of opposition team as well as Rome.
I'd say Ronaldinho is the best player. Then obviously Cristiano Ronaldo as well is close.
Some big names. David, thank you so much for your time and joining us on Sportology TV. It's been great talking to you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great to be joined by David Cotterill in part 1, but make sure you stay tuned. We have another great guest joining us. It is presenter David Alorca.